All righty. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of Brownsville Tech Live and now 956live.com. And in the house tonight, we've got Mr. Eddie Trevino. He is currently our Cameron County judge. Mr. Trevino, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor and a privilege to have you back on. I know it was about a year or two ago you were on with me. I think we were talking about the broadband study, and I'm glad to have you back. And now we've got another exciting project to talk about. So, can you give us a little bit of some background info on this project? And by the way, for those of you out there, Mr. Trevino is on the show tonight in his capacity as a private citizen, not necessarily as his official capacity as county judge, but as a private citizen who is interested in the same project as I am. And for those of you watching, we are broadcasting this live on Facebook and YouTube, and we will follow up with the rest of the 10 social media platforms after we are done with the show. So if you missed the show tonight, you can catch it on Spotify, you can catch it on iHeartRadio, you can catch it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and X. So if you miss it tonight, you can catch it on tomorrow on your drive to work. So, Mr. Trevino, welcome back. And can you give us a little bit of an update on this project, what it's all about, and what's at stake?
Let me try to give an overview and then see if I answer a few of the questions. And then obviously we can get into the specifics of whatever you may have. And I'll try my best to try to answer the questions as completely and fully as I can. All right, let's go back to November of 2016. In November of 2016, the county put on the ballot the approval or the potential passage of a visitor venue tax. I like calling it visitor tax because it's easier for people to understand as opposed to venue tax, which is the actual correct legislative name. So in that November 2016 election, in addition to either voting for or against the creation of the venue visitor tax, the voters also approved two potential projects that were going to be supported and paid for by the venue visitor tax. That was the Isla Blanca Amphitheater at Isla Blanca Park in South Padre and the South Texas Ecotourism Center in Laguna Vista. Now, we started on the Isla Blanca Amphitheater shortly after I took office, which has been 8 years. I took office in November of 16, right after that election. Had I been in office, I think at that time, I would have certainly encouraged them to add a potential arena proposition as an approved project at that point. In any event, what the visitor venue tax consists of is a 2% hotel occupancy tax added to the bill on any hotel or short-term stay here in Cameron County. In addition, it also includes the 5% motor vehicle rental tax here in Cameron County. So unless you are staying in our local hotels, you are not paying that local visitor tax. When you and I go visit San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, LA, New York, Chicago, whatever probable any other community, I can almost guarantee you that they have the similar tax on their on the bill. And that's great because that visitor tax is then used to support local projects. Now, the statute that allows the creation of this hotel tax and rental car tax can be only used for tourism and economic development related projects. Some people I know have said, hey, you need to focus on streets or on drainage or whatever other needs that there may be. And certainly they're right. But the law says you can only spend this on number one, economic development or tourism related. And the projects have to be voter approved in order to utilize this tax. So as we sit here today on April the 14th, we've been collecting that tax since November or January, I believe, of 2017. If the voters approve or disapprove the arena as an approved project, the hotel and rental car tax will continue to be collected. So this is why this is so important. As we potentially lose time, everything is getting more and more expensive. I don't know if you've
Right.
noticed, but there's a little bit of uncertainty in our economic, current condition as a nation, and that uncertainty. We go back 5 years, we had the pandemic, and now you're talking about the potential tariff or global wars. So all of this is creating an awareness and some uneasiness. So, but be that as it may, I I was born and raised here. I'm a firm believer that the people of Cameron County should have every right to the same amenities and quality of life projects that every other community has. Up the road, they've got two arenas and a performing arts center in McAllen, one in the Bird Ogden in Edinburgh, and the Payne in Hidalgo. Um, I tried to get this done when I was mayor over 20 years ago, and unfortunately, it didn't happen then. But that hasn't minimized my belief that this project is something that's going to be so critical. As we've seen the economic growth, really the unbelievable growth as a result of SpaceX coming to our community, and now next decade the LNG industries, we're seeing a huge explosion. They don't like to use that word at SpaceX, but a huge, unbelievable impact growth in our community.
Right.
And there are basically two things that people ask when a particular company, small or large, is looking to come to a community. The first question they ask is, tell us about your education system. And then the second one they ask is, what are your quality of life amenities? What can we do after hours? What can we do on the weekends?
Right.
I'm a firm believer that our kids and our education systems now, public school in particular, have the resources. They still need to be funded more. Whether you're for or against voucher, that's a separate discussion. But I know that our education system, both public and charter and even private, are among the best. And our kids, if they're given the same resources, I know that they're as excellent and as intelligent and as talented as kids anywhere else throughout the state or throughout the country. And we've
Oh,
seen that. So
right.
I think our education system is being taken care of. So now, as we have this growth and numerous people, hundreds, thousands moving from out of the area, you've seen downtown Brownsville, expanding, a lot more restaurants, a lot more
Right.
bars. You've seen it on the north end and near Pablo Quisel, near the mall. All of this is great development. We're having a housing shortage. We've got all these workers coming in, and we need to build more houses, more apartments, more duplexes, more townhomes. These are good problems to be having.
Right.
And it comes with growth. And I know people are upset about their taxes, their property valuations going up. Tax rates have actually been going down, and we hope to continue to be able to do that, at the same time provide the resources that we've given and provided in the past. So hopefully that's just kind of a good overview, and we can
Yeah.
go from there.
Well, one of the things that I've spoken about over the last several interviews, I've interviewed all the city commission candidates up to this point, and one of the topics, obviously, that I brought up each and every time was with regards to the venue. And one of the things I talked about was what I call the money drain. In the valley, we've always had a brain drain, but now it appears that we have a money drain when it comes from dollars leaving Cameron County to Hidalgo, right? I mean, I talk about people spending a lot of money going over to concerts over at, Payne and over at Bert Ogden. Not only do they go and spend money over there at the concerts, but they also eat over there. They shop at their malls. And if they're too tipsy or too tired, they'll stay at their hotels. And by the way, they're paying a hot tax, not our hot tax, their hot tax, right?
Correct.
So all that money is leaving Cameron County when it should be staying in Cameron County, and the lack of the venue is part of that problem. People say, well, you know, people can't afford it. Of course they can. Every single weekend, I see social posts of people out there at some concert or whatever. But that money's leaving Cameron County. Not only that, but we recently found out that UTRGV moved their commencement ceremonies for UTVRGV Brownsville graduates to Edinburgh, right? And one of the excuses they made at the time was that we didn't that everything was held outdoors. And then of course, as you know, we've always had the problem of having to have graduations in the sweltering heat of June. And we recently found out that Sam's Stadium was inadequate for even a simple high school playoff game last year, you know. So we've got parking issues downtown that don't help the situation as well when it comes to having sporting events down there. So, I mean, what's your take, Judge? Do you think we do have the money drain that's going from Cameron to Hidalgo?
Absolutely. Let's go back 40, let me see, what is it, 73? 50 years? 40 years, 50 years, right? 50 years. And Brownsville was the largest city in the valley, the most progressive, the most prosperous by far. However, because of that gap that we had with the rest of the valley, we started sitting on our hands and thinking they could never catch up. We started having some leadership issues, or individuals that weren't worried about tomorrow because they thought everything was absolutely fine. Well, while we were taking a break, Hidalgo, in particular, McAllen, was saying, let's do everything we can to catch up. And that's exactly what they did. The one resource that they have is their proximity to Monterrey and the money from Monterrey. They
Correct.
took advantage, they knew what they had, and they made that their priority. Economic development, tourism, retail. Their La Plaza is one of the largest, most productive, profitable malls, even to this day, in the entire country. So I
Correct.
remember hearing from Mayor Oso Brand, who was a very unique character, but he said, if I if I had the Port of Brownsville, if I had Matamoros right next to me, if I had South Padre Island down the road, if I had the Resacas, if I had the history of Brownsville, there's no telling what we could do. And he
Exactly.
was he was telling us, and yet some of us weren't listening. So when I became mayor 22 years ago, it was very, very important to me, and even in 2001 when I ran for city commission, that we tried to stop that spread because they were the way they were selling McAllen and Hidalgo is they weren't necessarily come here because we have these assets or we have this to show you. They were just showing all the problems that we were always seemed to be putting in front of everybody. Airing our dirty laundry is never a good situation.
Oh,
Differences of
absolutely.
opinion, differences of opinion, differences on issue. Hey, that happens, and absolutely. But always only criticizing and only wanting to be against something because somebody else is for it, even though you and I as the community, as members or people who live here can benefit from it. That's where I think we've kind of lost our focus. And yet, in spite of that, now they're doing the same thing. They'd love to have SpaceX in their backyard launching rockets, bringing all those jobs. The initial idea of SpaceX was to bring about 300 jobs and invest about 80 or 90 million dollars. They're at over 3.6 billion, 3,400 direct jobs, thousands more of indirect jobs, and we're looking at them bringing in their corporate headquarters, which could be anywhere from 2 to 10,000 more SpaceX employees.
Yeah.
That's that. Then you've got the largest private investment project in the entire country, which is Next Decade LNG. Now, the port was founded and initiated as an industrial port. That's what it's for. So some people who are upset that the port is actually getting those type of industries now, we have a whole new industry to get into, the liquefied natural gas. And some people will never be in favor of those types of industries. Other people are realizing that the jobs that they're now bringing is providing generational wealth in our community that we did not have before. So when you start realizing this, and by the way, appraisals have gone up throughout the entire state. That there is. If some people think that this only happened in Brownsville or Cameron County because of SpaceX, that is incorrect. I serve as chairman of the CUC, the Conference on Urban Counties, which are the 25 largest counties in the entire state. And I've gotten to know colleagues of mine, both Republican and Democrat, who are dealing with the same issues with regards to property values. So if we can come up with another system, that's great. But we have to remember that we don't have a sales or an income. I'm sorry, an income tax in Texas. And some people feel that the sales tax is regressive, but we need to come up with ways to if we want to get rid of or lower the continue the property tax value, we've got to make sure we come up with other sources of revenues in order to continue to provide those services that everybody counts on.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you touched on was definitely SpaceX. I mean, that, your predecessor was the one that initially had signed that agreement with SpaceX. And I had Mr. Costco's
Thank,
on many, many
thank you
times
for
on.
pointing. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, he said it himself. We can go back to the video, but it is true. Mr. Costco's was the one that initially signed the agreement with SpaceX back in 2014. And by the way, Mr. Costco's and I had a very good friendship. I really miss him, but one of the disagreements that I had with him was with regards to the point that he made with regards to SpaceX in 2014. What a lot of people don't realize is that the business environment back in 2014 for SpaceX was very, very different from what it is today. Back in 2014, SpaceX was looking for launch capabilities outside of Florida. And the reason they were doing that is because they could not get on a on a launch schedule, and they had to compete with the ULA, they had to compete with Boeing, and then NASA had issues with them using Launchpad 39A and 39B, which for those of us of a certain age, remember those to be the original Apollo and Space Shuttle launch facilities. So they had concerns about that. So they weren't giving Elon a whole lot of room for launch capability. So he started looking. Browns, Boca Chica was selected as a site, as a potential site. Puerto Rico, they were looking at Hawthorne, and they were even looking at solutions offshore, launching
Right.
them off of oil rigs, right? And so the dynamics was very different back in 2014. Well, fast forward 10 years later, we have a different dynamic. SpaceX currently is our only space partner today to be able to launch cargo to the International Space Station to ferry astronauts. SpaceX is the only one that was able to rescue the astronauts that were abandoned by Boeing for over a year. And Elon's plans are to launch 25 rockets from Boca Chica and possibly hundreds more across the Cape and across Florida. In order to do those amount of launches for the lunar and the Martian expeditions, it is going to require more than one area for launch capability. And so both the Cape and Starbase are potential opportunities for them to maintain that schedule. So the dynamics changed. So when Mr. Costco signed that agreement, and is the what the environment is today is completely different. And people need to understand that the business environment changed. And there's a lot of money when it comes to satellite launches. There is a lot of money to be made. And what does that mean? If we launch rockets from here, that means that SpaceX's tier one suppliers, their tier two suppliers, and their tier three suppliers may relocate not only to manufacture, but also to provide warehousing and logistics. I've seen this. I've worked in the automotive industry here locally in the Maquilas for years, and I've seen how suppliers, tier one, tier two, tier threes, relocated to the area because a major manufacturer relocated to this area. So um, that's that's what that is what we're facing today. We're facing multiple rocket launches that cannot be done alone by the Cape. So, and by the way, uh, they've been launching rockets for over 60 years in Florida, and not a single alligator or manatee has ever been lost. So that's my take.
And to follow along that, obviously the difference here is that it was contemplated to be a launch facility, to launch the Falcon 9 rockets to launch satellites.
Correct.
Well, in the 17-18 time frame, after meeting with him and having numerous discussions, he had a change of heart or whatever idea, and he says, "You know what? I can build it here as opposed to Hawthorne." So
Exactly.
all of a sudden, that launch facility became something completely different. And that's where the billions of dollars in investment have come into play. The thousands of high paying jobs, which by the way have also spurred better paying for the other people that hire pipe fitters and welders and the laborers who are making more money. And now with the LNGs. So the idea now is it's a research, production, testing, operation facility that if it's up to him and the way he sees the way of the world, the next mode of travel will be the starship.
Right.
And some people can say, oh, that's nuts, that's crazy. What? Maybe so, but he's gotten this far and he's not afraid of having a few anomalies, as they say. In order, he's breaking a few eggs in order to make that omelet. And I, I think any other community would just be waiting to have SpaceX in their backyard, getting doing all the development, testing, and production to get us back to the moon and to Mars and who knows where else.
Judge, did I hear you say that you became county judge after the fact the amphitheater was already decided upon and they started building it? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. The
So
election
what?
was early
Yeah.
November of 2016. I took office, I think 10 days later. I think the election was November 6th that year. That was a presidential election.
Right. And
Oh, by the way, let me just add real quick, so just so that Carlos and I knew each other my entire life. And while at the end, these last several years, we became political opponents, I had a friendship and a respect for him. And I certainly appreciated everything that he did in public service. Even if we disagreed on a few things, it was never personal. And I respected him and his family very, very much. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that just because we happen to run against each other, that impacted, not from my perspective anyway.
well, I'll tell you the same thing with me. I mean, I had him on my show many times. I loved having him on. He never missed an opportunity to be on. And I the last time that I spoke to him, believe it or not, was a couple of months before he actually passed away. I was in the hospital for over a month, and he called me personally and was kind of giving me a pep talk because he had just had heart surgery like a month prior. So I was having kind of heart surgery.
He
Not
had it during the election. That's right.
Yeah. So I appreciate that he did call me, and I always had great respect for him. I didn't always agree, but I always have great respect for him. So, you know, a true public servant, no doubt about
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So the reason I was asking about the amphitheater, sir, is that I know that a lot of some of my followers have, asked me, well, we spent all this money on the amphitheater. Why are we now building an arena? Can you? Oh, and by the way, that's not the only thing they throw out. They talk about, and I don't know if you were mayor at the time in Brownsville, or maybe this was before, but they throw out the sports park all the time. And I don't recall if you were mayor at the time or that was before your time, but can you kind of give us the differences between those facilities and what we're looking at now?
Well, the amphitheater was basically designed or planned to be able to see the launches, okay, at SpaceX. That was kind of the main thrust of having that kind of an open air, not arena, but open air facility.
Right.
As we got into it, we realized, well, we can't just have the launches. Let's try to take advantage and do something else with it. So that's how we tried to configure it so that events could be held there. The problem with our amphitheater, and any amphitheater for that matter, is that you're subject to the elements. Even if
Correct.
you try to put some type of covering, which we tried, but it was really it upset the line of sight, the line of vision for the people in the back. And we tried to reconfigure that. We fixed the stage, and we've done a few other things, hopeful that as we do these modifications, it'll be more attractive. But the problem is we're subject to the elements. One, two, the difference between an indoor arena is that you're able to host and hold so many other different types of events. Even though you could have a graduation at the amphitheater, and I've been there several times for several schools, you're still subject to the heat,
Right.
especially in graduation in the May and June timeframe. In an indoor arena, well, obviously you don't have to worry about the elements. Number one, you're able to host so many other type of events, concerts, theater, conferences, conventions, community events, sporting events. UTRGV is very much in support of this project, and they've committed to having sporting events there, basketball and volleyball, if we can get this passed. Obviously, in addition to the graduation, which is a top priority for all of us. Then you add in all the school districts: BISD, Los Fresnos, Harlingen, San Benito, Porter. Any of the school districts then would be able to host their graduation events there without worrying about the elements. The other problem that we run into, even if they have it here or they have it in Edinburgh, and especially over there, if it's not planned right, you've only got a certain number of tickets that the graduate can bring from their family, you
Correct.
know, and by planning it right and with time, that won't necessarily be an issue. Now, Jacob Brown, I believe, was built back in 1956 or 54, and Sam's was built in 54 or 56, or right around the same time. Now, when they built those two facilities, Brownsville was a preeminent place in South Texas. So it's unfortunate some that some of the people in our community can't see that in order to plan for tomorrow and the next 5 and 10 and 20 years, this type of a facility is going to bear fruit. It's going to put us on par with all of the other communities that have these type of amenities. A lot of people like going to the wrestling events, right?
Right.
That a lot of people like going to the big trucks, the
The
big
monster
wheels and
trucks.
monster trucks. Thank you. Ice hockey. Being able to have a multi-use facility is going to be able to take advantage. Now, the other criticism or concern they say is, at the end of the day, we're going to have having to pay for this. No, we will not be in the operation because we don't know about these type of facilities. So
Right.
our plan is to, if we can get this passed, then to contract with those individuals or those entities that have the expertise, that have the experience, and that have the know-it-all in order to operate these venues, with an understanding that we're going to have certain number of community events, graduations, things of that nature, that we want to make sure that the community takes advantage of, and that we make sure that we provide for them.
Well, one of the things I wanted to look at, a lot of people believe that, uh, the county just, pulled this out of the hat, that there was no feasibility study done whatsoever. And I wanted to kind of go over that feasibility study, if you don't mind, sir,
Okay.
if we get an opportunity here. And let me go ahead and flip that over here.
And that was one of the critiques that we heard previously. So we wanted to bring in a company who has that experience in reviewing and determining the feasibility of a project such as this.
So it was done by a company. It wasn't done by somebody at the county, basically, is what you're
No, no,
clarifying.
that's right.
All right. Well, basically, let me, if I can get my mouse to work. There was a methodology done, and according to this, there was a review of the local market. There was an analysis done of the local market. There was also a review of the existing venues that are around the area. There was some community feedback that was collected. And of course, there was an examination of the live industry, as well as, some venue benchmarking and some sponsorship projections. And then, of course, there's, some costs. So that was done. And basically, the market analysis was, they've identified the market as being about 428,927.
Which we all know that's a census number. That is way off. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course the category, the age demographic, for a lot of the shows are going to be people that are, between 35, possibly 45, maybe a little older. I've even got my Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt for commemoration tonight.
Awesome.
I would have. I would like to have ACDC come down one day, but
They're in Dallas tonight. They're doing the arena shows. But you know what? There's nothing beyond the realm of possibility if you go out and get after it.
exactly. And of course, there's a secondary market they talk about, which is a much bigger market, about 1.4 million. Expected growth to be about 2.35%. Categories around the 30s. And of course, our demographic here is about 91% Hispanic. So, um, you know, it's also notable to say that with including Matamoros and Reynosa, Matamoros has about 563,000 in population, and Reynosa, I didn't realize, was even larger,
Yep.
837,000.
So if you go from Brownsville to McAllen, Reynosa to Matamoros, you're talking 3.5 million people.
Right, right. Yeah, that's quite a big market. That's
Yes,
quite a
it
big
is.
market. And, they did look at primary competitive venues. They first of all looked at the Payne Arena, which is, I believe, the arena that's been around in Hidalgo for quite a while. And then, of
20 years.
course, yeah, and then the new arena was the Bert Ogden Arena, which is in Edinburgh. And the difference between those two, I believe, is that the Payne Arena is slightly smaller. They're 7,000 in capacity versus Bert Ogden, which is about 9,000, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah. And then, of course, they looked at the Sames Auto Arena in Laredo, and they looked at the American Bank Center. And of course, for whatever reason, they also, benchmarked the arena in Monterrey, which obviously is a lot bigger, right? And I know that some people out there were saying, well, gosh, it's only 69 events, or 20 events, or 26 events. This doesn't include the sporting events, right? This just includes the concerts, or does it include everything? That
I
these,
believe that the study had mainly, mainly shows for that, and because if you don't have a home team, if you don't have some kind of a sporting team, then you don't you don't have as many dates used up, and
right,
that's where working with the UTRGV and potentially coming into play where we have a large enough facility, a good enough facility where we might be attractive to another G League team. That's the other possibility.
right. Well, one of the things I was joking about this. I really didn't. I know that when I was interviewing the city commission candidates, I did mention this was true that Elon Musk was looking at buying a soccer team, and I said, well, heck, for why not convince him to relocate to the soccer capital of the world, Brownsville, Texas? After all, we've got the best soccer players on the planet, right? But
A lot
I
of
mean, that
states.
was just a joke, but some people took it literally seriously. But, soccer is a big thing down here, right? I mean, soccer, basketball,
Yep.
minor league basketball, so. But yeah, so definitely there was definitely primary competitive venues in the regional market. So there was an analysis done, and obviously, it appears that, having a venue here in Cameron County was still something that was viable. They felt it was viable despite some of the competition out there. Correct?
I think yes. If we weren't having the type of growth, uh, the type of attention that we're receiving as a result of SpaceX and the LNG and everything else that's going on, then maybe that it may be a harder sell.
Right.
But I think we have to realize that we have been found out, so to speak, and we are becoming extremely attractive. But if we can't offer the same amenities, we opened Gladys Porter Zoo back in, I think, 1970 or 71. It's about time that we continue to establish other tourist attractions. We need to have people. We need to give people a reason to come down here and stay. In addition to visiting, obviously, having people move their companies down here and bring employees. Well, that's awesome. But we know that tourism has been a big part. we've got the island. We need to market it in such a way that we can take advantage of it, so that you and I go to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers in San Antonio. Well, we're not driving up and coming back. We're going to
No.
spend a day, 2 or 3, and
Right.
that's exactly what should happen here. Whether they're staying in Brownsville or they're staying in at the island or anywhere else, because northern Brownsville, which the location that we're talking about is basically mid county. It's basically equidistant from Brownsville and Harlingen. It's also what 25 minutes from southern Hidalgo, and 35, 45 minutes from northern Hidalgo. Those are trips that are very easily done. We do it, but sometimes, like you said, you'd like to be able to have a drink or two and not get on the road. So you plan your stay there or for the weekend, and that's a
Right.
good thing to do. That just means that somebody's spending more money, and also they're being responsible, and at the same time we're benefiting from their good decisions.
Right. Well, there was an analysis done of of the regional venue capacities as well, and obviously they looked at several facilities in the area, starting with an event center in Far, which was like 2,500, the McAllen Convention Center, which is about 4,800. Which, by the way, I have doubts, and I'll tell you why I have doubts about that capacity, because I worked in McAllen for about a year, and we used to hold corporate events down there, and I kid you not, we were like 2,000 employees and we could barely fit in the main convention hall, and that is wall to wall. So I don't know where they get the 4,800, but even McAllen's convention center is small to hold events. And that's because I personally saw it myself.
and
And
and that's why we need to learn from those issues, to make sure that we don't that we learn from anybody else. I don't want to say mistakes, but that we try to market ourselves in a position to take advantage of that, and make the facility large enough so that we can have all of these events, and at the same time, because of the potential location that we're looking at, where the land's been donated by the developer, that particular area is already under construction. It's being developed, and it's being contemplated with regards to retail and commercial, the restaurants and the bars and the hotels.
right.
So it's there for us, but we've got to do our part.
Now, is it still going to be located in the same area that it was proposed before, sir?
Yes, because that's where the developer has donated and offered to donate the land, and also getting in and getting out from a transportation standpoint is something that we want to make part of the development and process. And we think that location lends itself so that, if you do need to get back on the road, you're going to be able to do it without hopefully having to spend another 30 or 45 minutes waiting for traffic to get through.
Now, do you have any idea of what I've gone through this slide a couple of times and I don't think I caught onto it, but do you know what they're recommending as far as seating capacity goes? Because that's been one of my pet peeves, to be honest with you. Every time we build something, it seems like we build it for the short term instead of the long term. And it doesn't matter what it is. It just seems that we just don't have the capacity. So, do you have any idea whether it's going to be 7,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15?
I believe the safest, most pragmatic recommendation would be to go a little bit larger than what we have currently in the valley.
Okay.
The point, and they've given us a couple of options. They gave us what they call these hybrid venues, which are kind of amphitheater related type, but with some kind of a covering. But the problem with those is that obviously you would not be able to have sporting events. It would limit the number of types of events that you could have. It's cheaper, it's less expensive to build that type of a facility than it would be to build an enclosed facility. But I, I maybe I'm wrong, but I think if we were to settle for a flexible hybrid type system, or arena, the day after we would make that decision, I think we would be regretting having taken that position.
Oh, oh,
So
I agree. I agree. We've seen it so many times, right? I mean, we've seen it. The Jacob Brown had, I think, a little bit of larger capacity than the current event center does, right?
right,
Now we're talking about adding more gates to the local airport, right? And so it's kind of like, we didn't think of this before, right? So it
And
was so yeah, definitely I think 7,000's a non-starter, and
yeah,
I would hope that it would be something greater than what currently is available, right? You know.
and obviously it'll be a factor of cost, but I think if as the saying goes, if you're going to be a bear, then be a grizzly.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and unless you go up north, unless you travel up north and attend certain things, I just attended a church in San Antonio that has a 10,000 capacity for a sanctuary.
Yep.
10,000. And I'm thinking to myself, if a church can do this with for 10,000 seat capacity, why can't we, It's incredible.
The old summit in Houston is got taken over by the church.
Yeah,
Oh
Joel
my God,
Olstein.
Joel Olstein. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
And people looked at him like, "Oh, you're crazy." Hey, he's going full bore, and the city was able to get use out of the old arena. So yeah, don't tell me that people won't get excited. That we should be looking at this as a half full project rather than a half empty. Tell us or start believing what good can happen as a result of having this arena here in Cameron County, as opposed to telling us why it's such a terrible idea and we shouldn't do anything.
right.
Anybody can sit on their hands and do nothing and be able to say, I didn't mess anything up.
Yeah,
And maybe I'm being, I get criticized for being in support of this project and taking it to the voters for a third time. The first time was the constitutional election. You and I both know that hardly only the hardcore voters goes to vote on a constitutional election. It
right.
lost by 67 votes, and there was no marketing or press done with regards to make people aware. People told us, "Oh man, if I had known, I would have gone. I would have gone." Well, so we did it for that particular May election, and it lost by 212 votes. Maybe I'm wrong on the exact number, but it was approximately 200 votes, which is still not an overwhelming number when you're talking about several thousand. So we waited a while, see what the pulse was, and the comments continue to be the same. When are you going to put this back?
Right.
When are you going to give us another chance at this? And so I'm hopeful that the third time's a charm, but I really believe that Cameron County is deserving of this type of a project. And what's great about it is that the initial stream of money is being paid for by the visitor. Now
Right.
we've made it clear in our resolution in support of the election that property taxes would not be part of the consideration. So we've got to go and find out and get a lot more money in order to fund the project. Now, perhaps at the end of the day, we're not able to come up with the full price tag, whatever that price tag is, whether it's 200 or 225 or 250. That's a lot of money. But I
Right.
can tell you that 3 years ago, when we were contemplating this, the project cost was approximately 100 to 150.
I
So in
remember that
just
figure. I remember
so
that.
just in 3 short years, it's not quite doubled, but it's getting there.
Right.
So you think it's a fair assumption to say that in another 2, 3, or 5 years, if we continue to wait, that the price is going to go down? I don't think so.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that you just touched on is that I've advocated this across my interviews with the city commission candidates is that we've got to get out of this idea of no we can't and yes we can.
Absolutely.
One of my pet peeves, Judge, is the fact that, we've got these northern journalists that come down every couple of months and they write some horrible article about the area, calling Brownsville and the area the poorest area in the country. But you and I both have traveled to a lot of different places in the country. And if you want to see poor, there are places in the deep south where there is poor, where there is absolutely no industry. You go up to the northern part of the cities, and the northern cities, and you see what poor is. We are not poor by any means. And so we've got to get out of this mode. We've got to get out of this mode that we're the poorest city in the country, because we're not. We're not. That is just a narrative that a few negative Nancys locally keep on peddling, that we're the poorest area in the country, and we're not. I mean, it's like last week they put out an article. It was kind of funny. Brownsville is the unhealthiest city in the country, and I shot back and said, "Okay, fine, granted, but how did Harlingen do? How did McAllen do? How did San Antonio do? I guarantee you they didn't fare any better." But it's like, excuse the word I'm going to use, somebody always likes to shit on Brownsville all the time, you know.
It's unfortunate, and that's why I think it's imperative that we take control of the narrative. Trust
Right.
me, there's a lot of exciting things going on in Cameron County, and we need to believe it.
Yeah.
I went to talk to the kids at Cromac Castañeda last Friday because they're starting their test. They start testing here this week for the next couple of weeks, and the excitement, the energy that was in that in that school, in that cafeteria when I went to go, I didn't need to motivate him. They motivated me.
Right.
So we should be thinking about them,
Right.
our kids, our grandkids, and their kids, because we continuing to wait for tomorrow is all it's going to do is delay progress and to get us out of that poverty narrative, which we unfortunately we've been subject to for way too long.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, it's now or never. It doesn't matter what the project is, right? We're talking the arena today. There may be a project down tomorrow, but we've got an opportunity here with expanded economic growth, with people coming in, making. I mean, the average salary out at Starbase is $35 an hour. Where on earth in the past were our folks making $35 an hour? That was unheard of. LNG is another opportunity for our folks to make a decent wage. And not only that, a decent wage means that a better home, a better car. They'll get to eat at their restaurants. They'll get to shop at our stores. I mean, there's a trickle down effect. I know that word gets ridiculed a lot of times by a lot of people, but there is a trickling down, and it's really now or never. There's never a good time, but if we don't make the step, we'll just keep on twiddling our thumbs, day in and day out, and watch the world go by.
And we can't afford to do that because we've done that before and it was to our detriment. It was to
Absolutely.
our detriment.
Absolutely. They talk about, they did an analysis of tiers. What would our arena fall under? Do you know what kind of tier it would fall under?
Um, I don't recall because I think that depends on the amount of the number of seating.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way,
The
I know
larger
there's, yeah, I know there's
the
a few
larger
viewers. Yeah.
the larger the arena, the larger the higher tier events, I think is what I recall.
Yeah, and I know there's a few viewers still kind of confused about the who's paying for it, and I think we've clarified that quite a bit, that this is the visitor
I hope
tax, which
so.
is that it's the hot tax. It's not the sales tax.
It's not, well, yes,
I,
it's not the sales tax. It's a hot tax, and it's not the property tax. That's what I really want to make sure we're clear. This is not going to be paid for by the property taxes that you and I pay.
right, right, and yeah. So yeah, basically, one of the users is asking Mr. De Los Santos is, could you clarify that we cannot use the hot tax money for infrastructure? And I think you've mentioned that we cannot by law.
That is correct. Some people have mentioned to me or asked me about drainage projects, and we can't use these funds for those type of projects either.
Right.
There's a very limited, and that's why these type of projects, arena, tourism, economic development related, it's a very limited number of projects that we can do. That's why the amphitheater and the South Texas Ecotourism Center were able to get approved, because those are the type of projects that bring in additional tourism to the community. If the zoo didn't exist, let's say, if the zoo didn't exist, that would be potentially a visitor venue type project that could get approved. And again, we have to go through the state to make sure that this project would meet muster, would fit under the statute, and they advised us that it would, and it would not impact their state revenue.
Now, one of the things that people have asked me in the past was with regards to, well, besides graduations and stuff like that, and some concerts, will the arena be sitting there? And I think one of the things you mentioned was that the county was not going to manage the management of the venue itself. You were going to hire, or there was going to be somebody that was going to run it. Correct?
Yeah, this will be a public-private partnership, right?
Okay. And I think there's some organizations. I think it's Live Nation, which is a music promoter. So it would be the music promotion company that would possibly be the one directing those concerts, correct?
Exactly. Or either one like them, or ones that work with them that operate other arenas throughout the country.
And there's could you talk to us a little bit? I mean, I know you mentioned something about hybrid venues. Now, what's the difference?
Those are the ones that I'm telling you right now, where most of those, for the most part, are open air, or they're only designed for a particular purpose. The first one, that Mission Ballroom one, is a pretty nice facility, but you can't have sporting events in it.
Right.
The Toyota Music Factory is in Dallas, or outside of Dallas. I haven't yet to go, but I've heard it's a really, really unique facility, and they can, quote unquote, leave it open, and it's like 4,000 or 5,000, and then they can enclose it or enlarge it, and it becomes like 6,000 or 8,000. But again, that's basically an open air type facility. You cannot have sporting events. You could have a graduation potentially there, but you'd still be potentially subject to the elements, even if there was some potential covering.
Right.
So those are those hybrid venues. Those are basically outdoor type facilities.
Correct. And we won't bore everybody with a lot of this stuff, but one of the things I did want to hone in on was obviously with regards to the last slide. Basically, the conclusions of the study was that the company that did the market analysis deemed that there appears to be a demand here locally for live entertainment venues, and they've identified that it would be something a little larger, possibly 12,000 seats. A hybrid would be about 4,000 seats, and of course it would have to generate an annual profit before debt. One of the things you talked about, and I know that a few of the negative Nancy's out there on social media honed in on the cost. They were asking, well, why is it now 275 and 375 versus 100 and 150? And I think you mentioned early on that part of that is obviously inflation, right? I mean, the cost of materials has gone up, right? So
this is what we get for not having been able to start this 3 years ago.
Right.
Had it passed then, we'd probably be close to getting ready to open, and it would have been at a much lower price tag. And you mentioned earlier about the sports park. Let me go back real quick. So when I was mayor, I was pushing to build an arena in Brownsville. And unfortunately, while I was able to garner countywide support, my own city commission decided to do the sports park instead. That was not my priority. That was not my choice. But of course, that was towards the end of my tenure, and I was very concerned. But once the decision was made to do that, I then said, well, then we should build it on property that the city already owns, which is, and I was suggesting the 130 acres on Alton Glora, West Alton Glora, over by 281. I forget the name of the park now. It's that bike park. It's a very nice facility, but anyway, again, the city commission decided to put it where its current location is, and I was against that. But I was in the minority back then. And I look back now, and I hate to tell you what the price tag was for an arena, 20 years ago, it was going to be approximately 30 to 35 million.
Oh, I believe it.
And I shudder to think where we would be right now if we had had an arena for the last 20 years or even 15 years. I think the sports park was a great idea, but it ended up costing, guess what, almost that amount of money, which was unfortunate because there was no infrastructure where they put the sports park in, and they didn't get buy-in. I tried to get buy-in from the school district and others to do it together so that we would maximize the local resources and not do things, two or three at a time. I know that the school district would like to have a performing arts center. That's something that I think we need to consider as we do our planning, and so that way it can be available for smaller theater or performing arts type local events. But I think where there's a will, there's a way, and the the environment in our community right now is such that we need to take advantage and start realizing that we are and can be big players across the state and across the country and even across the world. Uh, we have a lot going on for us, but we've got to work together. We've got to be able to believe, and even if you disagree, then hey, give me an idea as to how to make this better. Not tell me why this can't work.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, right? It's always easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and say why you should have done this and you should have done that. But
Yeah,
just the simple math says that the costs of of construction have gone up, and that's what is affecting that price tag, right? But as you know we've talked about today, the majority of that funding is going to be through the hot tax, a tax that you and I don't pay unless we have a water leak at home, right? And we have to stay at a local hotel somewhere, right? But the
right.
majority of that funding is going to come from those that come down to the area to visit. The only time I guess we may pay a hot tax is if we go down to the island and stay at a hotel, right? But then we're a visitor
Absolutely.
at that point,
And
right? We're not
that's
as
that's good because then at least your dollars are staying here as
right,
opposed to going somewhere else to be
right,
used by that community. I
right.
mean, the visitor tax is a win-win. It really truly is. It's one of the good ideas that Austin came up with, that all the communities have been able to take advantage of, and I think we need to do so as well.
Now, sir, wanted to give you an opportunity. Moving just slightly away from the arena. We did talk about SpaceX and so forth, but I know that there's been some, uh, you know, social media posts out there claiming that we've given up complete control of Boca Chica Beach and of course Starbase, and they claim that we basically forced the incorporation, or we enticed SpaceX to incorporate. Can you clarify exactly how that incorporation ballot came about, just once and for all?
Well, okay. Basically, the state law sets out the requirements and guidelines and parameters for a group of citizens, for a group of individuals who potentially, quote unquote, live out in the country. They don't live within the confines of a particular city, and they want to establish their own city municipality. So any group of individuals, okay, who feels wants to be able to do that can petition in order to do that. If you meet all of the requirements under the law, number of people, number of citizens, number of individuals signing off on the petition to incorporate, having a plan in place with regards to future local government, et cetera, then as county judge, my only responsibility, my only authority is to basically review the petition. And if it checks off all the boxes, then I have to approve it. Now, if any of the boxes had not been checked off, if they had not met all of the requirements under the state law, then an election would not have been called. I can tell you that several years ago, we were trying to get a zip code for Starbase, and for whatever reason, it was just very, very difficult in order for us to get that done. Um, Now, the idea that I or anybody else in county government was encouraging SpaceX to incorporate couldn't be further from the truth. Um, but just because I may not be in favor of it, that doesn't mean that I get to say, well, no, I'm not going to allow it, just because it may be a bad deal for the rest of us. And perhaps it will be. Okay. And we saw the first remnants of that with regards to the legislation that was submitted in the session, both in Senate and in the Senate and in the House, taking away part of the county's current authority to close Highway 4 and Boca Chica Beach, and limiting it to the weekends from Friday through Sunday. I let our representatives and our senator know that in no uncertain terms we would not be in support of the legislation. I let SpaceX know that we would not be in support of that legislation. And I know that being criticized comes with the territory, comes with a position, and I understand that. I just want to make sure that people understand the facts,
Right.
and because I have tried to help make the operations in space of SpaceX successful. I think that's my responsibility as county judge to bring in as many high paying jobs as possible. And so many of the people that are working over there, many of them have reached out to me, have stopped me wherever I may be at HEB or at church, and let me know that they're so happy because they're either there or their son is back from having worked in Houston or Louisiana for the last 5 or 10 years. And now they're able to stay with their family the entire time. Um,
Right.
Plus, the attraction that we're having, is making us more inviting to potential other economic development, large projects, large
Correct.
investments. So it's all part and parcel of trying to do everything we can to create an environment where business can succeed, not to the detriment of our people, our culture, or our environment. Remember that a few years ago, Elon was considered the biggest environmentalist in the entire country and the entire world. I'm sorry, in the entire world.
Right.
I don't think he's lost that, even though he's obviously a capitalist and he's been very successful in business. But I don't think he wants to harm our community, because by doing that, it would make him a terrible corporate citizen. But that doesn't mean that we can't hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they're doing everything the way they're supposed to. So
Right.
all we can do is what's within our power. It wasn't up to me to say that the people of Cameron County don't get to vote. When a petition to incorporate gets filed and gets approved and an election is called, the people who live within the geographic boundaries, they're the ones who vote in that election.
Right.
That's just that's the law. That's how it works. It's not me picking and choosing. And I've tried to explain that, and certain people understand it. They may not agree, they may not like it, but at least they understand that that's the truth of the situation. I'm criticized and for a lot of different things. I can handle that as long as it's the truth. If it's not the truth, then that is unsettling and disconcerting to me, because my only commitment since I got involved in public service over 25 years ago, 24 years ago, is to do everything I could to make Brownsville and now Cameron County the best place in which to live and work. And if you want to criticize me for that, I can live with that for my decisions. But don't make up stories that aren't true, because it does hurt, especially when it's not true.
Well, I'll tell you what. Don't feel bad. I get told I'm Elon's local cheerleader, right? Which is far from the truth, right? There are things that I obviously will have vocally, criticized Elon at times, but for clarification, for anybody that has doubts, he's not paying for this show, never has. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. But one thing that we do have to keep in mind, and it's something that I've talked about in my interviews with the commission candidates, is that one of the things about SpaceX being down here is every time a rocket launches from Boca Chica, it is a testament of our local workforce. It is a testament to the world that
Absolutely.
not only can we build widgets, small little widgets, but we can build interplanetary vehicles that are one day going to go to the moon and to Mars and beyond. It is a testament to our workforce, and it says that our workforce is the most exceptional workforce on the planet, and it is something to be proud of because it's our people. 80% of those employees down there are building those huge rockets. And that's something that, is a testament to the world. And it's a testament to anybody, any manufacturer that says, maybe we should relocate down there. Those people can build rockets. Maybe they can build
That's
cars.
right.
Maybe they can build computers. Maybe they can build TVs. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And
Absolutely.
so that's what we've got to drive home. And I think that's something that, unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of people still don't understand that, that is our people that are building those things, and it's all about our children. It's all about their children and their grandchildren. Never do I want my child to have to leave the area to go to school. You and I had to leave to go out to get an education, right? But they
Right.
shouldn't have to. And the only way that's going to happen is if we provide the economic incentives to stay here and to attract the business to stay here. And
We talked about education. The fact now that UTRGV, is valley wide. We've got the technical schools, we've got the community colleges. That brain drain that had been impacting us for decades, 6, 7, 8 decades. Any community that lost its best and brightest over an extended period of time would suffer, and that's exactly what happened to Cameron County. What happened to the valley? That is changing. That is severely, on the turnaround. And now, because of the education, because of the opportunities to develop the skilled labor force, to develop these engineering, these degree programs, these certifications that people can get and obtain great salaries in order to sustain and support their families. That's why anything is possible now. But we've got to believe it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Judge, I know that we had promised we'd stay on for 45 minutes. We've got a little over, and I would love to keep on going, but I know you probably got things to do, and I definitely have things to do. But I
I,
wanted,
I haven't I haven't eaten all day, Daniel, so I am a little hungry. It's been one of those days. So,
yeah,
but yeah, but I
but
appreciate the opportunity. I enjoyed our conversation. I hope that we answered some questions. I hope we addressed some concerns, uh, so that at least they understand the true facts of this upcoming venue election and realize that in my opinion, as a citizen of Cameron County, it's a no brainer. If at the end of the day we can make it happen, well then we won't. But this is a first big step, and we need the voter support in order to make this to get us on the right path.
and of course they can start voting starting next week, right? Starting on
I
Tuesday, and that
believe the
will
20s, the 22nd through the 29th, and the elections on the 3rd.
correct. And for those of you that are interested in the presentation that we presented tonight, you can go over to the county and it's available for download. So anybody can go out there and check out some of the facts and data as well.
And
Once
if you
again,
live in Cameron County, you're eligible to, if you're registered and you live in Cameron County, you're eligible to vote in this election.
great. Alrighty. Well, Mr. Trevino, it was great having you as always. Welcome back, and hopefully, you'll come back, you know, in, in a few months, and we'll talk some more.
Absolutely. Holler at me, Daniel. I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate what you do for our community. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Bye
Have a
bye.
good evening.